And he said, I need to know for sure that if I let you in here and I give you this promotion, you can never talk about it. You can never tell your friends. You can't tell anyone. It is 100% confidential. He offered to pay me $500 a week from around $100 a week. So I was like, I don't care what it is. So we walk in. To the left was this 6 foot, 7 foot long stainless steel table. And on the table was a man in his 40s, completely naked with a gunshot wound to his face. And from that day forward, in the next 3 years, Wally and I disposed of over 50 bodies.
Hi, and welcome to Stacks Over Tax. I'm Sterling Grace, and with me today is Mark Lewis and our guest, Rondi Lambeth. And he is a credit expert and brilliant in all things around credit, both for corporate and personal. And so we're so excited you joined us today and can't wait to learn all about credit and how it is that we can improve that in our lives.
So he's also an incredible, and I hope we have time to talk about his story today, from like the textbook rags to riches and entrepreneurial. If you look up entrepreneur in Webster's dictionary, you're going to see his picture. It's a younger picture, but it's right there next to entrepreneur. So there's so much wisdom, so much knowledge, and so many great stories that we're going to hear here.
And we'll do that. Thanks for having me on, guys. It is so good to be alive. Every day that I wake up with my eyes and I'm laying in bed, whether I'm traveling or at home, I just really thank God that I got one more day. So glad to be here. I grew up very different than probably most people in America. I grew up really poor. People often will say that. I grew up in a shack not too far from where I live in Boise, Idaho. No running water, no electricity. And we got our food, if we didn't kill it or catch it, we primarily got our food out of the dumpster. And at age 15, I got tired of eating garbage. I got tired of a mentally ill psychopath torturing me and I'm the oldest of 13 kids. And I left home. I was like, I can go out and do this on my own. And probably I might eat out of the dumpster, but I won't get beat up every day.
Who was the psychopath? Was it all your siblings?
What's that?
Who was the psychopath? Was it all your siblings?
My stepdad. My stepdad was a psychopath. He had spent time in prison for murdering someone. He had multiple personalities. Paul was the nice man. Simon was the psycho.
Wow.
So, and you never knew when Simon was going to show up. You could be sitting there having a good time. Next thing you know, you're getting hit across the face with a 12-gauge shotgun. So it was quite the childhood. So I left home, and about 16 years old or so, I was doing a little bit of couch surfing in and out of foster care, and I ended up in Eastern Oregon. My cousin, who introduced me to one of the most powerful men in this county, very, very wealthy man. And I think the guy felt sorry for me. So he hired me to wash his cars, mow the lawn, take out the trash, do things around what he called the shop. And one day I was mowing the lawn. I'm 16 or so, 16 and a half. And he was the kind of guy that he would just open the door and yell. And he's like, Rondi, get in here. So I thought he was going to fire me. And I'm panicking because I needed the money. I mean, I was making $3.35 an hour. Oh. Not a lot. This was 1987. But that was minimum wage in Oregon. Mm. So at least I had some money. So I ran in there and I'm like, yes, sir. How can I help you? And he's like, I want to offer you a promotion. And before he could even tell me what it was, I'm like, yes. He's like, I haven't even told you what it is yet. I'm like, I don't care. If I'm making more money, I don't care what it is. I said, I'll kill somebody for you if I need to. And he just looked at me. He's like, and then he didn't say anything. He was also a psychopath. He was a guy that would just lose his temper, punch holes in the walls. And I was good with it because I was used to it. I knew how to keep my mouth shut and just sit there and just kind of disappear into the corner. So he's like, come with me. So we walked down this long hallway. And at the end of the hallway was a sign that says, do not enter. And he had told me when I first started working for him, never go into this room, ever. You're not allowed. I'm like, I won't want to lose my $3.35. my job. I wasn't curious like you were, Mark. I was like, don't go in there. I won't go in there. So we go to walk in and he stops and he turns around and he said, I need to know for sure that if I let you in here and I give you this promotion, you can never talk about it. You can never tell your friends. You can't tell anyone. It is 100% confidential.
Wow. Ominous.
Yes. And I was like, you can trust me. Because he offered to pay me $500 a week.
Whoa.
From around $100 a week. So I was like, I don't care what it is. So we walk in. To the right was this countertop, and it had all these tools. It had knives and like these screwdriver things and like a saw. To the left was this 7 foot long stainless steel table. And on the table was a man in his 40s-ish, completely naked with a gunshot wound to his face. And before I could run out of the room, Wally, I think, sensed that I was scared. Like, what the hell did I get myself into? He's like, give me that saw. And from that day forward, in the next 3 years, Wally and I disposed of over 50 bodies.
You're lying. Come on.
I'm not.
No.
Wow.
Old people, women, unfortunately, children.
Wow.
And that was the first time in my life that someone actually believed in me, trusted me, and really started to mentor me. And for those 3 years, I was a licensed embalmer and a mortuary apprentice. See, Wally was not a mob boss. Wally owned the only funeral home and mortuary in about 500 square miles.
Amazing.
And I had so much fun at this job, even though I had to deal with death, but I got respect for the first time in my life. I got to wear a suit. I got a nice car to drive. The police respected me. The citizens respected me. And it was the first time in my life that people started believing in me. Mm. And one of the things that he taught me that stuck with me my entire life, and that's really when I started becoming an entrepreneur, was it's not as important how much money you make as it is how much money you keep. And the most important thing that you can do is learn how to keep it all.
Preach.
Because if you can keep it all, you can become very wealthy. And so he started teaching me about taxes and petty cash and tax deductions. And that really was my journey to becoming an entrepreneur. And fast forward just a few years, in my early 20s, I was worth millions of dollars. I've owned many, many companies. Currently, I have 7 different financial service related companies. And I think it's one of the greatest possible things that you can be as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are what makes the world go round. Entrepreneurs are what fixes the world's problems. It's not politicians, it's entrepreneurs. If there's a problem, they find the solution, they fix the solution, or they fix the problem. So that's how I got started doing this.
Wow. So you had really kind of a watershed moment, like a crossing the Rubicon kind of experience when you crossed through that door, and you're like, there's a dead guy here. And but if I'm hearing you right, what you experienced was respect. I mean, obviously it didn't happen that day, but you're like, okay, I'm licensed. There's trust. There's respect. I'm getting good money too, but you were going to run out of that room, even though it was $500 a week, because you're like, this is crazy. But then somebody trusted you. So of those things, if somebody had a job, I just had a conversation with somebody a couple of days ago, a man who's trying to decide, he hates his job. He's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. I'm really good at it, and I just can't do it anymore. I want to do kind of what you're doing, entrepreneurism. And we had a conversation about, where does he start? What's the most important thing you would tell somebody who's like, I'm going to start this. I'm going to walk away from the safety.
Yeah, there's so many things that I could say. It's hard for me to say what's the most important thing to say. I would say that what Wally taught me is it doesn't matter how much money you make. I mean, I meet with entrepreneurs just like you do and Sterling does, that they make millions of dollars and they keep thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. So I think really understanding how to make money is important, how to get customers is important, how to keep customers is important, but how to keep your money is probably one of the most important things you can do. Because if you can keep more of it, you have more of it to invest back into your business, eventually into your staff, so you can start scaling, and then eventually start investing that money back into your community and making a difference. I hate that term, giving back. I never give back, ever, because I never took anything from anybody. So I don't have to give anything back.
Right.
Now, I give to my community. I give my time and my money and my resources, but I never give back. So I think that's probably it, Mark, is, being committed. And then the next thing would be prepared to go to war. Be prepared for battle every single day. Entrepreneurs, I read a study a few years ago, and it's entrepreneurs have a higher level of PTSD than military members do. Much higher, in fact, because you're constantly bombarded with problems. And what I found is good entrepreneurs, like the ones that are really, really successful, they thrive on solving problems. And unfortunately, some of them get really addicted to it. And so they start tinkering with their business a little bit, and then they break it. And they're like, oh, now I can fix this problem, because they constantly want to solve problems.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. We were just having this conversation a few weeks ago, and I was telling Mark, like, this is what it looks like when it's working. Like, it's supposed to be hard and complicated and weird, and what worked yesterday didn't work today. And this is it. There's no other place to get to. Like, you might as well burn the finish line down. It doesn't get easy. It's just different. It's not ever this you get stronger, but it doesn't necessarily change. And so I love that about being an entrepreneur. And I've been an entrepreneur in bunches of different types of businesses and industries, but I still think that's the only great reason to be an entrepreneur, is that there's something to fix every morning, and I get up and I'm excited, and no matter what it is. And sometimes it wears me out, right? I have days where it just wears me out, right? But I like that part about it. Like, that's the part that lights me up. That's the part that has me knock it on someone else's payroll. Really.
I think the other thing I would add to that, Sterling, is there is no finish line.
No.
A lot of people think, oh, when I get to here, I'll be happy, or I get to here, I get to here. If you are going to be a successful entrepreneur that is satisfied, that is happy, and that doesn't just completely lose their mind due to stress, you need to figure out very, very early, there is no finish line. There is no winning the game, because as soon as you get close to that goalpost, you move it out another 100 yards, and you will never, ever. You should never actually run through the goalpost. You should never reach the end, because that means you stop learning.
Yeah.
If you stop learning, I think you die.
I completely agree. I was telling Mark, I had a business a long time ago, and me and my partner, what we did is we stopped playing the game of if we were winning. Because whatever, we could buy cars, we could get a different house, whatever. We started playing the game of the guy who was our opener on the phone, right, who cold called on the phone when he had a good car, when he was taking his girl to somewhere nice to eat. Like, that's what actually was up on our board, was like, how well is he doing this week? Not how well our closers are doing, not how well are their business doing. Like, is the kid that we pulled off the street cold calling, is he able to afford a Lexus? Right? I remember the day he went and got a Lexus, right? It's a big fucking moment. It was way more fun than us getting a new car even, right? So I think he got a new car before I did, because we were just so excited about that. And so that's way more entertainment and way more motivation. And then you just start over every month, because that's the way that kind of industry works. Like 31 days and day one is day one again. And so, I love that. That super lights me up. So I love that, Rondi. So fun. Well, then the curious question is then, how did you, so clearly the mortician business wasn't for you, Rondi. And I can kind of understand why, because I bet, having known you a little while, I actually bet you're really great at that job, because that's a job that requires a lot of compassion, really good listening, right? Like, people having fucking hard ass moments. So I can kind of see how in the skill set, right? Like, how you move from obviously you've had other businesses, but how you've moved from that to credit, because it's the same thing, right? People are having the death of their like, wow, I thought I had this together and clearly I don't actually know what I'm doing, or travesty has happened to them and they have credit problems because of that. But was there something that had you go, the credit industry is the place for me? Or
It didn't quite happen that way.
oh, okay.
It was, we got called to a car accident, and it was a man and woman. He had a heart attack driving up a mountain road, ran off the road, killed him, killed his wife, killed the kids in the car, and killed the dog. And that was like my last straw. I'm like, I am done doing this, because we were the cleanup crew.
You would show up at the accident. They wouldn't just bring you bodies.
Mm-mm. No, because there was only one coroner. So that first time when he said, hand me the saw, we were actually going to do an autopsy. And I just had enough. And so I decided I'm done. And from now on, I'm going to be the fireman that shows up. So I sold my house as a teenager. I bought I think it was a 42-foot trailer, which I don't have any regrets in life, but one of my financial regrets was selling that trailer, because I was up there a few months ago in John Day, Oregon. That trailer's still sitting there. And I paid $15,000 for it. And I remember after I closed on it, I went to high school, and one of the kids tried making fun of me because I was a senior in high school. And he's like, "Oh, I heard you bought a trailer and you live in the trailer park." And I'm like, "Yeah, and you still live with your mom. So what's the problem here?" So, and I ended up selling it, but that thing rents for $750 a month. And I did the math. I would have made $300,000 if I would have just kept the trailer.
Welcome to owning trailer parks.
Yeah. But I sold it. But what had happened is I went on the call and I saw, I was like, I'm done with this. I want to be the guy that called before everybody's dead. And so I up and sold my stuff. I moved to Denver, Colorado in 1992 because I heard they were building this big airport called DIA, and they were going to be hiring lots of firefighters. So I moved to Denver and I got accepted to the fire academy. I went to the fire academy and become a fireman for Littleton Fire. And I did that until 2006.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was on the busiest rescue in Denver. I absolutely loved that job. At the same time, there's things I didn't like. I was a first responder at Columbine High School. So my partner and I, Patrick, are the ones that found the 13 kids that survived. And, luckily, none of them died. So I transported Mark Taylor. He was one of the kids that had been shot multiple times. And that's kind of the turning point for me, was like, I don't know if I can do this either, because it was being on the busiest rescue in Denver. It was 12 to sometimes 15 calls a day. So it's 24 hours nonstop of shootings and stabbings and drug overdoses and car accidents. And in my early 20s, it was, I'm an adrenaline junkie. Like, I liked it. Driving the fire truck 100 miles an hour. But after a while, it started to wear on me. And then in 2006, my mom, I still at that point did not have a really good relationship with her, because when I left my home, my mom offered me $20 in food stamps and sent me on my way. And so I felt abandoned by her. And now I don't, because look, my mom was young, and, up until 1977, women, they always talk about not being able to vote, but until 1977, you couldn't have a credit card, you couldn't have a car loan, you couldn't sign a lease, you couldn't even get a bank account without a man's signature. And so when I learned that in the credit industry, I really started having a lot of grace from my mom, because here she was, before she met Paul, she had 4 boys. And then my other siblings, so I have 3 full brothers, and then the rest are half brothers, half sisters. I don't count any of the step siblings, just because who knows how many there's out there. But but my mom called me after the fire department, and because I was on a really busy rescue, the rule was when I go to the fire department, I was married, I had kids, was you don't call me at the fire department. I don't call you, you don't call me, because if you call your spouse every night and then one night you don't, they think something's wrong. So I got off shift. I turned on my cell phone, and this is 2006. It was one of the Matrix ones, the Razors, I think it was called.
Yeah, Razor, yeah.
You push the button and it pops out, $1,000 garbage phone.
At least you can hear on that phone, though. As a sidebar, I can't hear on the iPhone. That was the last phone we had that I could hear on. So, I don't know.
And I had all these phone calls from my mom. So I called her. She was distraught. And she's like, yeah, your brother Zeke, who's my youngest sibling, who also was a fireman. And I really didn't spend much time with him because after I left home, I got married and I had kids and, I was doing my own thing. And she said he had an accident. I'm like, okay, well, we're firefighters. That's what we do. And she's like, no, he's had an accident. I'm like, and? I was callous, And she goes, he died. And I'm like, well, what happened? He killed himself.
Oh.
And I'm like, he's 21 years old. And so at that point, the older brother and me took over. The funeral director brother and me took over. And so I managed all of that. Come to find out, he was getting harassed by collection companies over some BS medical bills, a credit card that he got that he didn't pay, a car payment he was late behind. And they started calling him. He got into a depression. And then they started calling his girlfriend. Him and his girlfriend got in a big fight. She said, Zeke, you're a loser. You've always been a loser. Your family are losers, and you'll never accomplish anything. So he went out to the car, got a gun, and shot himself. Over a few $100.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was like, I can't be the hero, the firefighter of the year, when my family members are hurting so bad. My family members are killing themselves over collections and credit. And so at that point, I started self-educating myself. I got a Robert Kiyosaki book, started learning about money and taxes and real estate. And then 2007, I bought an entire law set of books on credit law from the National Consumer Law Center. So it was like $4,000.
Wow.
And for I started the credit repair business, and I just fixed people's credit for free because I didn't know what I was doing. And I just told people, yeah, I'll fix it for free. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. And I started, I reverse engineered it. What I did is I went and I bought all these law books, and they were just case study after case study after case study of banks and collection companies and credit bureaus losing. And I started seeing similarities in the cases. So then I started writing and creating letters based on those case studies where the collection company lost. And then the thing just went off. It went crazy. I started making tens of millions of dollars because up until that point, all the credit repair companies in America would charge you like $99 down, $99 a month. And they would drag this thing out as long as they could, because the longer it took them to fix your credit, the more money they could bill you.
Right.
And there's no money to make if they fix it in a month. So I had a real estate license at the time as well. So I'm like, I'm going to make it like a real estate agent. You only pay me if I fix it. Well, so I would fix people's credit. They'd come into my office. I'd look at their credit report. And I'd say, okay, it's going to be $2,500, $3,000, $1,200, whatever it is, because I charge $100 per account per bureau. Well, what do you guys think happens when your clients, all of them, don't pay their bills on time? And then you fix their credit in 45 days and send them a $2,000 bill.
They're not going to pay.
50% didn't pay me. So I was like, all right, I got to figure out how to fix this problem. So what I ended up doing was I teamed up with mortgage brokers that they had people that got denied a mortgage but really wanted to buy a house. And I said, look, I will fix their credit, and I can fix it in 35 to 45 days, but you have to pay me at closing. And if they don't pay me at closing, I'm going to put everything back. Mm-hmm. So my pay rate, the amount of clients that paid me, the percentage went from 50% to about 99%. And on the 1%, it was because they lost their job or whatever. And so I never put it back. So that's in 2012 was when that really took off. And now since that's 13 years ago, so the company's been around since 2007. We just hit our 18th year.
Amazing.
Actually, that's not it. We're 17 and a half years old. So, yeah, close enough, right? And we've helped hundreds of thousands of people go from 400 to 700, and hundreds of thousands of people get houses and cars and start businesses and then establishing their business credit so they can, like what you were saying, Mark, one of the biggest problems that entrepreneurs, I think one of the biggest mistakes they make is using personal credit cards to fund their business. And not so much in the beginning, but after they're successful, after they have a profitable business. I had lunch with a guy today, very, very profitable, millions of dollars a year in revenue. And he paid for lunch today with a debit card. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm just paying for lunch. I'm like, is that a business debit card? He goes, no, it's my personal account. I'm like, one, our lunch is tax deductible. And two, you should never use a business or a debit card. And three, why aren't you paying with a business credit card?
Yeah, you shouldn't use a debit card as a rule.
As a rule. That is a hard set rule. Yeah. No debit cards. And so I had a little credit education with him. But I think that's a big mistake I see entrepreneurs making is they use personal credit cards once they're established. In the beginning, you don't have business, you don't have any profit yet. You can't build business credit yet. But after about 6 months, the nice thing with business credit is you can have the equivalent of an 800 FICO score for your business in 3 to 6 months versus 10 years to personal to have the same score. So after 6 months of being in business, you should never use personal credit ever again because of what happens when you use a personal card. Yeah, the IRS doesn't care whose name's on it as long as you're not commingling, as you teach, Mark. Mm-hmm. They don't care whose name's on it. They care what it's for, what are you purchasing, and who's paying for it. And so I think business owners, one of the mistakes is they don't establish business credit and they use personal credit to pay for things. And the problem is with personal credit, anytime you go over 5% of that utilization rate, your score goes down. And for every 5 points that you use it, you lose. For every 5% you use your card, you lose 5 points. Wow. So if you maxed out a $500 credit card, a $5,000 credit card, a $50,000, $500,000, FICO doesn't care what the credit limit is. They care about the utilization rate. If you max out that credit card just so you can pay for Facebook ads or whatever, you'll see 165 to 200 point reduction in your personal score.
Wow.
And now you're stuck in the low 600s all the time. And now it's really hard to get business lines of credit and loans. So that's how I got into credit. That was a long answer.
Wow. That's an incredible story. We have, there's a client we have, and he's got a business that's been going on for a really long time. And he finds that he's like, I don't know how to get, his line of business requires him to actually pump a lot of capital in to buy big machinery. And he's like, I always have to personally guarantee it. They won't let me not personally guarantee the loan. And I'm like, that can't be right. Are you kidding? So if he's got that problem, a lot of people are going to have that problem. What would you say around that?
You are going to personally guarantee every loan you have until you hit about $10 million in revenue.
10 million in revenue or profit?
$10 million in revenue.
Okay.
You're going to have PG every time. And almost every single time, with exception to American Express, you're going to have a PG. So there's business credit and then there's corporate credit. To get to corporate credit, it's $10 million of revenue. Otherwise, you don't even qualify. So, but you can do a business loan. He should easily be able to get equipment financing loan. That's a very easy thing to establish. Business loans, business lines of credit, business credit cards. They will have personal guarantees, but they don't show up on your personal credit.
Right.
And that's a big difference. So it's only until you get 10 million or above where you get a corporate card that doesn't have a personal guarantee. But that's because you got assets, and they are putting liens on your assets.
Right.
So there's no free lunch. The banks are not stupid. The banks just don't throw money at people and say, oh, well, if you pay us back, great. Somebody is responsible for it at the end of the day.
Oh my gosh, that was an insane amount of information. I think everybody's going to have to watch this a few times, which I love. Thank you so much for just your contribution in the world and how it is that you're so committed to others. I love that. It's part of what we love about what we do is that we really believe that the wealth gap is really just a knowledge gap. And it's totally something people can do. And even if it takes some time, they're more than capable. So I love that that's our shared vision together. And I know that they can come and find you at Just Your Name or Fortress U or Credit Mojo, which is obviously, I think everybody should at least do that one. And if you're looking for information about taxes and legacy and asset protection, then come find us over at Executive Money Strategies. And until then, and again, and we hope you'll come back and be with us. But for now, be wealthy. Goodbye.
Everybody.